Do you know someone, or maybe more than one someone, who they look like they're following the rules and being a good person, but you know things about them. You know that they're actually cheating and stealing and lying and doing dirty. And you don't say anything because you're trying to be a good person. That's today's Oddcast.
We always have an odd one in the crowd.
So it's kind of odd.
Decidedly odd.
Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd?
No, that doesn't strike me as a little bit odd.
It's the Bob and Sheri Oddcast. It's stuff we wouldn't, couldn't, or shouldn't do on the regular show. Now, here's the Oddcast.
Sometimes after we finish up for the day here, we sit around on the front porch like a bunch of old cowhands at the general store and shoot the breeze. And we'll get to talking about folks that we used to work with, for example, because Lamar has been part of this show almost since the beginning of this show. So we all have the same coworkers going way back. And so occasionally we'll get to talking about these folks, and sometimes along maybe a few years, maybe more than a few years after you leave a job, you'll get news of somebody that you used to work with, and you'll be like, wait, she was embezzling, or he was sleeping with that one? Like these things that swirl around in your workplace that you're oblivious to. Because I think that we all have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of that. Like you don't really know. So working in the business that we're in, it's pretty relaxed. This is not, some big accounting firm or insurance company. Media tends to be a more relaxed workplace, and it attracts more free-spirited, creative types of people, and the rules are just different. But certain rules are the same everywhere. Like you're not supposed to harass your coworkers. You're not supposed to steal from the company or lie to your customers, that kind of thing. Those rules are sort of general. But over time, in some workplaces, rules get kind of stretched out and a little bit sloppy. Lamar, I'm not going to ask you to talk about Budweiser because I don't want to get anybody there in trouble. But I'm sure that you have seen in your time people getting kind of casual, right, about the rules.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, from way back, I've laid out in the bushes across the road with binoculars and caught,
with me on the phone. He's talking to me on the phone. What are you doing tonight? I'm trying to check out to see who's stealing the beer.
I was under a truck across the road behind a fence.
Beep, beep, beep. You are laying on your belly under a truck with a pair of binoculars and Max on the phone doing a surveillance operation.
That's right.
Well, I was bored, so I didn't talk to Max. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Well, I'm across the road here. I'm looking through binoculars, seeing who's doing what.
And you always caught him. You always caught whoever it was that was stealing the beer because they thought that somehow there was just so much of it that you wouldn't miss any. But, you do inventory, and when something comes missing,
Oh, yeah.
So so you'd be out there doing a sting operation with your binoculars, all dressed in black, I'm assuming, so you blend into the environment like a ninja. And you ascertain the beer theft. Then what happens? What happens next?
Well, at that point, once I saw it go into the back of the car, I woke my boss up and I said, "I got it." I said, "I just watched it go in the back of the car." And he said, "All right, take care of it." So I got in the car and pulled through to the other side, and I called the police and met the police there. And, I have to say though, and somebody else was involved in that because they were there. There were multiple people there, but he said, "This is only me. I'm the only one." I said, "Okay, that's the way you want to take it. Go ahead." So
this is like a Southern Fried episode of The Sopranos. Instead of Paulie Walnuts, I've got Jethro Hickory Nuts here. Doing about your boss made you go do the bust? Like, Thank goodness
Yeah.
everybody was kind of cool about the whole thing. You see why I'm concerned. This could have gone another way.
And I just, you know, listen,
You know.
I was the eyewitness. So, you know, when I walked over and I said, "What's the deal in the back of the car?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "No, that's not true." I said, "There's about 12 cases of beer in the back of that car." And I said, "I'm pretty sure you didn't get out here by yourself." So
I cannot believe I did not know that you were doing citizen surveillance on beer
Oh, yeah.
thievery while you worked
yeah.
at Budweiser.
And it wasn't just one time. I mean, I could
no.
I could name a half dozen times that you and I were on the phone because
Yeah.
we had such rich, full lives.
Yeah.
And did you know these guys that were stealing it? And did they know you?
Well, yeah, I hired them. I mean, these are people that I hired. Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
come out of when you emerge from the shadows, dressed all in black with your binoculars, they were like, "Lamar, what are you doing here?" Like, was that just very dramatic?
Well, when I drive up and it's about 11:30 at night, and you know, what's going on? Well, what you got in the back of that car? What are you talking about? You know, I said, no, there's nothing back there. I said, well, do you want to open it up? He goes, no. And I said, well, I know what's back there because I watched you put it back there. I said, now somebody else here is helping you. I said, this wasn't just you. I said, who else? He goes, nope, just me.
Stand up guy
He was
doing
a
his
stand-up
time.
guy. He
Yeah.
sure did. He
So,
sure did.
in that moment, did you make him load the stolen beer into your truck? What happened? Like literally, what happened?
Well,
then?
no. Well, no. I made him take it back out and put it back in the warehouse. Now, and I took some pictures of it, and then of course the police came, and you know that kind of.
So
thing.
they arrested him and took him away in cuffs.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
I mean,
yeah.
You do see how this could be dangerous, though.
Yeah. I had one that I caught, and it was late in the evening, and he was causing some trouble and whatever. And so I went up there. He was a big old boy. Good gosh! I mean, he was a hoss. I mean, he was about 6'3". He's about 230, and just muscular guy. And so I went up there because I had a guy call me. He said, "We got a problem up here." I said, "I'm afraid he's causing a problem. He was threatening somebody." And so I went up there, and I said, "All right." I said, "You got to go." And he said, "Well, I'm not going anywhere." "Oh, no, yeah, you are." So I called the cops, and so the cops came, and they handcuffed him. And as he's going out the door, he looks back at me and he goes, "Oh, I'll get out." And he said, "I'm coming to see you." I said, "Really?"
Oh my
He
goodness.
said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you mean to do me harm if you?" He says, "I'm going to beat your, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Okay." I said to two cops, I said, "Y'all heard that, right?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "So if that happens and he winds up being dead, you understand?" He goes, "We got no problem with it. Just call us." He said, "Because we heard him threaten you." And I said, "Okay." I never heard back from him. Because, I mean, when you threatening me in front of cops, please.
Well, that is so stupid. I mean, I can't.
That
That
is
person's
so
that person's too stupid to be drinking beer, much less stealing it. They need every
Yeah.
brain cell they've got. Wow.
I mean, but
Wow.
it's just crazy.
Hmm.
It's crazy. We had another distributorship in the lower part of the state. They had a guy that was rolling the beer in to the grocery store and getting it counted and then rolling it out the back and bringing it back to the truck. And so they had their normal meetings or whatever, like on a Friday morning meeting at that Budweiser down there. And they're up there just talking. And all of a sudden, they had two sheriff's deputies come in the back. And the guy said, "Hold on for a second." And he pointed at the guy and he said, "They're here to arrest you." And he's like, "Well, what do you want?" He goes, "Well, because, this, and this." And it was a bunch of, I mean, he'd been doing it it was a bunch of money. And they put him in handcuffs and they walked him back out the door. And we had a situation where we had something like that happening. And I tried my best. To get my boss. I said, if you want to stop, if you want to not worry about this, have the sheriff's deputies come in that back door during one of the meetings, handcuff him, and take him out the door. I said, the object lesson there, it's so powerful.
It would be,
So-
yeah.
Yeah.
It
But-
would be a deterrent.
Yeah, but he wouldn't do it. Because, and really, truly, I got that idea. I was working a Piggly Wiggly, and the produce guy was, I don't know what he was stealing, but he was stealing something. And I had a good relationship with the manager, and he said, I was getting ready to leave. He said, why don't you hang around for a little bit? I said, you're fixing to have some excitement. And about that time, city police pulled up, and they got out, and they walked to the back, and they come walking out with the produce manager, handcuffs behind you, put him in the car and drove off. I said, what's going on? He said, he was, stealing some stuff or whatever. And I said, well, man, that's tough. He goes, it is tough. He said, I know for at least a month, I ain't got to worry about nobody in here. Because once you watch somebody go out in handcuffs, it puts everybody on the straight and narrow.
Can I channel my inner Bob?
Sure.
If he says fixing to, that means something is about to
Yes.
happen. So
Yeah.
fixing to means
Fixing
it's about
to
to
means
happen.
it's fixing to happen.
The Piggly Wiggly.
If you'll just hang on.
It's a grocery
Piggly Wiggly is a grocery store, not a real Piggly Wiggly. Okay, so it's a grocery store where people go.
Yeah. And it's
So
a
when
chain,
Lamar
and
says,
it's a big chain
Lamar
in the
says,
South.
so I'm over at the Piggly Wiggly. He's not hog riding at a rodeo. He's at a grocery
Hey, listen,
store.
you are talking to a person who has actually appeared on camera as a used cow salesman for Piggly Wiggly supermarkets. So,
See, there you go.
yeah, it was an
There you go.
acting job. What can I say?
Piggly
So-
Wiggly was in Forrest Gump too.
It
Pretty much-
was.
and that- yeah.
So question, the guy that was doing the dirty with the grocery store where he would bring the beer in and then take it back out to the truck, did he have an accomplice at the grocery store that was helping him run this scam? Or was he just...
They really couldn't prove that. They could not prove that because there are people, I mean, for him to get out the back door, I think he probably did. But the bottom line was they were, Budweiser was worried about their person because, they can't have their person doing that. Listen, we had another one. I'm not saying where it's at, but we had another big distributor, and they arrested, I think, 14 people. What was happening was they teamed up together. They had somebody in management, they had some people on the truck, and they had some people in the warehouse. So, like, we counted the trucks out in the morning and counting them back in the afternoon. And everybody does it a little different, but everybody counts it. Everybody knows what's going out and what's coming back in, and whatever's not there, somebody's got to pay for. But if you have got a management person, he has some go, and you've got the person that counts in the afternoon, another person that can't. If you have got all of those people involved, you can go to town because, I mean, the checks and balances, they're all on the take. And they had about 14 of them at this distributorship. And they were stealing kegs. It wound up to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think it was 14 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, 14 of them went to jail. Sure did.
I'm always disappointed in myself because I come from criminals, but they were inept, half-assed criminals. True.
Yeah.
But I don't ever see this stuff coming. Like, it would not have occurred to me to figure out, if I bring these cases in and get them counted and bring them right back out, that's my beer. Like I'd be so afraid of, one, of getting caught, but also it feels so gross to do a bad thing, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't it feel gross
It's
to
supposed
do a bad
to.
thing?
It doesn't feel gross to bad people.
To bad people. For a sociopath, it is an adrenaline rush.
It's just
getting away with it.
I feel a little bit sick when I watch somebody do a really bad thing on a TV show or a movie, much less in real life. And we, Max and I, worked with people over the course of time who broke big time laws. People were stealing money. People were stealing property. We had one guy, this was the pettiest of all of the things that went down because we saw a ton of money get skimmed off from things that
Charitable endeavors.
charitable things like you're going to hell, right? But
Yeah.
what this guy did, it was so petty and stupid. And why you would risk not just a job, it cost this guy his entire career because he was in front of the mic, in front of the camera, right? He was stealing coffee pods by the case out of the break room and selling them at flea markets.
And what's really
For the
funny
life of
about
me.
it is this is a guy who used to be a hard-bitten investigative journalist. At one time, he was.
And yeah, he was like a big deal. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to say his name, although we have no reason to protect him, but also no reason to harm him. So I'm not going to say his
that's
name.
right.
It doesn't help. It doesn't.
But-
for our purposes, it doesn't move the story along
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
But if you knew, you would be like, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
We had people
And-
that were in charge of the money where we were. A couple of them who did shady things.
And for the most part, we worked for most of our career. We worked for companies that wouldn't prosecute. They just made you quietly quit and go away.
Yeah.
and
No,
never
they didn't
be
want the
seen again.
publicity. They did not want
Yeah.
the publicity. That's exactly right.
So we've seen some stuff. I've actually with my eyeballs seen some sketch behavior. You have to be careful in businesses where there's a lot of cash floating around. So you would say, but why would there be cash at a radio station? Well, because we used to host a lot of big events like outdoor festivals and
Yeah.
you know
People show up.
fireworks
Fourth of
shows.
July fireworks, all kinds
and
of stuff. Yeah.
we would do a lot of charitable things where people would donate money, and that's cash that's, it's not traced in any way. It's not accounted for in any way.
Yeah. No one's really sure how much of it there is. So no one's really sure how much of it there was yesterday. So we've seen some things. And one of I don't know what label to slap on this, but one of the things that drove me crazy, because some of the people that are doing this are also the most sanctimonious pricks in the room, right?
Always.
Right? So
Yeah.
you're watching this guy that is skimming, and he's lecturing his underlings about their dress code or their punctuality or their attitude or whatever. And you're watching this and you're like, this guy is filthy. This guy is so dirty. And we had a lot of this. I mean, there's like a whole parade of mugshots in my brain right now of various people that we knew and witnessed and watched get terminated for literally stealing and lying and cheating. Right?
And some of them you weren't surprised about, but then there was the ones, and Sheri would say to me, and I go, no way.
Shock. One of these people said to me once, I guess it's where you grew up, but you're a real handful. This was probably because I told him to blow me. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I love what you do.
That comes across as a handful. I got to be honest.
But I got to
That's
tell
okay,
you, like, I'm going to tell you to blow me if I think you need to blow me, but you never have to worry about me stealing your money or your silverware or your wife. Like, you don't have to worry about any of that with me. I'm not going to do any of that. And it just used to drive me crazy to watch the way some of them would act. They were such hypocrites. And then you knew what they were doing. And they were so like preachy and, this is company policy. Is extortion company policy? Because you're doing some of that, right? How about embezzlement? Would that be company policy?
But Sheri, isn't that always the way? The ones who seem to be the most sanctimonious and the ones who are, you must follow the rules, the ones that are the most rigid are the ones that are most likely to be doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. I believe.
I'm real suspicious of people that pick a drum and bang the crap out of it. Why are you so focused on workplace affairs? Is it because you're sleeping with the business manager and you're both married to other people? Could that be why? Right? Because you do see that. It's almost like, and people don't realize, I think it's unconscious for the most part, they don't realize that by forcefully crusading against fill in the blank, they think that they're setting up a PR campaign where they're the last person that would be guilty of that. You see how strongly she feels about stealing from the company, right?
Mhm.
She would never steal from. As soon as someone gets in my face and starts really banging the drum on any subject, I'm immediately like, oh, you're doing that, aren't you? Ew. Because it's too, when it's that loud and that insistent, Max, how often is it not a freaking direct clue?
Yeah,
It's true.
really. And, the thing about it is, it's not that I couldn't see cash if we did a charitable thing, but the idea of actually taking that money would not occur to me. I mean, no one would know, but I would, and not because I'm a good person, but I would be so racked with guilt over the fact that, let's just say we collected money for, I don't know, American Cancer Society, let's say. So I would be so racked with guilt that whatever money I took would mean there would be less of a chance that somebody could get either treatment or a cure for cancer. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
I wouldn't do it, not just because I would feel guilty about it or because my grandmother is beyond the grave saying, if you steal money from a cancer kid, you're going to get cancer. That's not even why. I wouldn't do it because I couldn't live with myself. I could not live with myself. Now, there are plenty of rules that this girl gonna break and not lose a minute's sleep. But none of them really fall under the auspices of the 10 Commandments. If I happen to pick up a jar of gummies while I'm in, say, Colorado, and they make it home in my carry-on to a state where they're not legal, this bitch gonna eat one at bedtime, and I'm not gonna feel any kind of way about it. But I'm not gonna murder you or steal from your fundraising for sick children. Like, I don't understand how these people live inside their own skin. Do you?
But you know what? It all points to something. In Nazi Germany, when Hitler took control, all of these people that were just kind of like Adolf Eichmann was a guy who was selling hardware. Well, he would have sold hardware for the rest of his life if that had not happened. But then, given the right set of circumstances, he became one of Hitler's henchmen. So I think the same thing is true with the people that walk among us. Given the right set of circumstances, they could be a completely different person than what you know because of what's hidden inside.
And maybe that's true for all of us. And the secret to life is getting through without that temptation or that button getting pushed. Because I can't sit here and tell you, like, I wouldn't even be Nazi adjacent. Some of y'all are. I would never, ever, right? But I can't sit here and say that there aren't things that might not tempt me. Can you really tell me there's nothing that would tempt you?
There's a show called Heist about different heists that were done. It's on Netflix, and this guy was working for a company that made bourbon, I believe, and it was a real highbrow bourbon, and he ended up stealing all kinds of the bourbon and sold it. And we're talking more than 3 cases of Budweiser. We're talking it was many, many thousands of dollars with this. And I remember the comment that he made that was a bit of a rationalization. He said, well, if you were in this situation, you would do it too. Really?
I don't think so.
I'd like to think not.
I don't think so. I like my comfort. Let's say I worked for a company where you use the corporate travel account to book your business travel. Now, we've never had that, right? But I know other people, like I have friends who have jobs where there's a division of their company that books all their business travel. Let's say I'm in the division of the company that books the business travel. I can promise you I would never fly coach again. That would be such a temptation to not use that access to make myself a little more comfortable. That would be really tempting for me. But there is such an enormous, and I haven't done it, mostly because I haven't had the chance. but here's the thing. There is an ocean of difference between, I'm going to upgrade these 2 tickets to first class for me and Kevin, and I'm going to load these human beings into a boxcar. There is, now it's all the same slippery slope, because if I can get you to violate your own ethics and boundaries a little bit here, then I can push you a little further next time, and so on until I reach your limit, right?
Goes by degrees.
I think all of us, because we're, human and we're human, I think all of us have areas where we would be tempted.
We used to take in a lot of cash when we were out. Now it's mostly wire transfer.
At Budweiser?
Yeah, but at Budweiser, I mean, sometimes I'd come in with $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 in cash money, 20s and 10s and whatever. You have to count at the end of the night and make a deposit. And anytime they sent somebody, a new guy with me to train, the first thing I would tell him is, you can't look at this as money, because this is not money. This is pieces of paper that allow you to check up correctly. You can't spend this money. This money can never be yours. So it's not really money. Because if you start thinking about it being money, then you're going to be thinking, damn, if I could just get me a little bit of that money. Mm-hmm. Now, I always had a theory for people that stole. I always said this. You could be a lunch thief, meaning you swap a 6-pack of beer for a hamburger, or you know what I'm saying? You could be a lunch thief. You could be a lunch thief forever. But if you will do the lunch, then you're going to start doing maybe something to take your wife out to dinner. And it starts progressing. And sooner or later, you're making a car payment with this money that you're taking. And it gets so big, you can't control it. And then you get caught. I've always said that, because if you're going to do this, you're not going to stop. You're not. Because if you get away with this, and the next thing you know, you've built your life on money that you are stealing. And then one day you owe a car payment. It's going to be hard to steal this money, but I got to do it. I got to do it. And you do something stupid and then you get caught. That's how people get caught. They just want, if you're going to do one, you're going to keep going. There's no stopping. It's not going to happen. Sorry.
You're so right about that. I just can't make my car payment this month. So
yeah,
the first company that Max and I worked for in radio together, they were not a broadcasting company. They were an insurance company. So they owned a bunch of TV and radio stations as like a separate side division, but they were primarily an insurance company. And there was a woman who, we didn't really know her. Like, we knew her name and face, but she wasn't somebody we interacted with. And one day she just disappeared. And we found out not long after, was it about $30,000?
In that neighborhood. Yeah, it seems about right.
And they did not prosecute. They let it go. She was an older woman, and I think there were some issues. And they just decided they were really almost ridiculously good company, and they just decided to look the other way on it. But I was told later, and I don't know if this is true or not, but that it started with a bill that she couldn't cover.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like all that much, and she meant to pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
that's a road notices. You don't take a step on that road, because it's hard to get back off of it.
Nobody notices. Yep. So and I look at like the criminals in my family. For the most part, there was a healthy lack of functioning empathy or a conscience, so there was that as a problem. Yeah. But there was no like desperate need, like the baby's going to starve. Mostly it was, I don't really want anybody to tell me what to do, so I can't keep a job. Do you know what I mean? Like it was, I'm just not going to play the game by the game's rules. And so there was not that there's ever any nobility, but I got to tell you what, if I saw a woman steal baby formula because her kid was starving, I didn't see anything. I'm just telling you that right now. I didn't see a damn thing. There are times when I think you do look away. A child. Now, granted, this is a scene from Aladdin, the cartoon, but a hungry child snatching an apple in a market. I know that's stealing and that's wrong. And that farmer just lost an apple. But
Well,
I
I
didn't see a
understand.
damn thing, Lamar. I didn't see it.
I agree.
But walking 30 cases of beer out of the Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah.
That's a little bit
tough.
harder to justify.
That's a little
isn't
bit
it?
tough. Yep.
Wow. So as we wrap up this outcast, do you miss being an undercover beverage ninja? Do we need to come up with
Well,
something for you?
the hours was worse, but the work was easier than this.
Hey, I tried to tell you.
I know.
Right.
Hey, 10 o'clock at night, he was out doing surveillance. Now 10 o'clock at night. This will make a great morons in the news story.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm searching. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, surveillance was a lot more relaxing, wasn't it? Just you
It
on
was.
your belly under the truck, watching the beer heist.
Yeah.
That wraps up today's Oddcast. We sure hope that you're behaving and not doing anything bad or anything too bad. Because we're not going to rat you out, but somebody will. Our website is BOBANDSHERI.com. We so appreciate your listening. Be here Friday for a brand new episode of Talking Lamar. We'll see you on the next Oddcast.